Thank you very much. I'm going to ask Dr. LaBelle to come forward again at this time. We're going to move on to the discussion of the genetics statement. I had the opportunity to talk to Dr. LaBelle just last evening, and he said that his workshops were packed and there was lively conversation. So I was very excited to hear that there are people here who are taking seriously the statement on genetics and learning and asking questions. What we have determined, or suggesting, what the Synod Council and staff are suggesting, is that we move into a time of conversation. It's called, technically, a quasi-committee of the whole. Aren't you glad to know that? But we do have a motion to move in this direction. The intention would be that we set aside 1/2 hour for conversation, and that there will be no parliamentary procedure in the sense of moving resolutions or trying to change wording on anything, because that will happen at the church-wide assembly in August. But we wanted to invite you to have the opportunity to make your own feelings known, both about what this statement might mean to us as a church, or if you have further questions or just want to make a comment, if you want to speak for or against. Your conversation will help inform the church-wide assembly delegation that's going from the upstate New York Synod to Orlando in August. I'm going to ask Dr. LaBelle if there's any further comments from yesterday's workshops that you might want, and then I'm simply going to open the floor. But let me read the motion so that if there are questions about that, you can know. The motion will be to go into quasi-committee of the whole for a period of 1/2 hour to discuss the proposed recommended social statement on genetics. During the time of the discussion, we will follow a 2-minute rule on speeches, and as we're able, the chair will alternate those who wish to speak for and against. It would be very helpful to carry to the microphone a red card if you are speaking against, or a green card if you're speaking in favor of the social statement. Or bring a white card if you are undecided or want to ask questions. During the quasi-committee of the whole, no parliamentary motions will be in order and no votes will be taken. Are there any questions about the procedure from this point? Then Tom, can I ask you to just make that motion? I'm not going to read it again, if that's okay. Do you all understand it?
It's so moved.
He moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? All those who are in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any who are opposed, say no. Okay, it is adopted. Dr. LaBelle, is there anything from the workshops you'd like to add?
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
There is one thing that came up during the workshops that I'd like to speak about. About 1 out of 4 of you were at one or the other workshops, so I'll ask you to indulge me for a couple minutes to bring the others up to speed. And then after that, it'll be people coming to the microphones. And by the way, I will resist any temptation to feel compelled to defend myself or the task force in the event that people have negative comments. I'm not necessarily going to get into a debate, but this is an opportunity for you to make negative comments as well as positive ones. But we don't have the time for wide open debates. A subject came up in both of the sessions yesterday, which I think is important to expose to everybody. And the reason I think so is that both times when it came up, it was a point of lack of clarity due to something that happened last summer. Last year, when the first draft of the statement was published, a prominent person in the press in upstate, was it Minnesota? No, it was North Dakota, published an article in a widely read farming magazine decrying the church, dictating to farmers that it is morally wrong to use genetically modified organisms. No such idea was anywhere in the statement. This person imagined that it was in the statement and used her platform as an opportunity to have thousands of people become very upset and worried about what the church was doing with this genetic statement. To the extent that one small congregation in North Dakota actually took a vote to leave the ELCA over this. But there was never any such suggestion in the statement, nor is there in the revised statement. This person, having actually read the revised statement a few months ago, published an article apologizing for having said what she said and written what she wrote without even having read the document in the first place. And she praised the document as something of great creativity and usefulness now that she's actually read it. Of course, character assassination of any kind, once it's accomplished, is accomplished. And so what I learned yesterday in both sessions is that there was at least one person in the room who had it in mind that the church was actually moving to condemn genetically modified organisms. And no such idea ever could have gained currency in that room where the 20 of us sat for dozens and dozens of hours thinking and talking about these subjects. The idea never could have gained any traction. There would have been no sympathy for that idea on the task force.
Thank you. This is your opportunity to speak. So I invite you to move to a microphone if you wish to say something. It looks like microphone number 3.
Wendy Buckley, St. Paul's, Williamsville, North Park, and Buffalo. I guess my opposition comes from personal understanding, and if Dr. LaBelle finds that there's something wrong with my logic. A year ago, I was tested for the BRCA1 and BRCA2 gene because I am an early breast cancer person, under the age of 50. The BRCA1 and BRCA2 gene is a patented gene. And even though it is in my body, it is owned by Myriad Laboratories in Salt Lake City. The test cost about $4,000. Most of it, of course, paid by Board of Pensions. Canada does not allow the genes that are inside of your body to be patented. And since I'm so close to the river and can go to Canada, that same test offered in various forms, offered by 3 different companies, is $300. And so I'm a little upset that human genes that are inside your body are not addressed in a way that the statement does not say that it's wrong to patent them.
The reason that the statement does not say that it is flat out wrong to patent genes and genetic material and genetic technologies is that the issue is far larger and broader than the specific issue that you're raising. Myriad Genetics in Salt Lake City holds the patent to the process of testing for mutations in the BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes. And frankly, that position that they hold in the scientific and medical community is one that is very much disliked by virtually everybody who practices clinical genetics. I do BRCA1 and 2 testing every week, and I send the specimens to Myriad Genetics because that's the only place you can send them in the United States. And it's because they hold the patent on the process. there are lawsuits pending in federal courts with the American Society of Human Genetics and the American College of Human Genetics, both having filed amicus curiae briefs to cease and desist this type of patenting and the impact it has on the practice of clinical genetics. But a broadcast prohibition or expression of a desire for a prohibition on any kind of patenting involved in genetics would not only not be practical, it would really have no utility. And the reason for that is patenting is far larger issue than this. Francis Collins, who is a born-again Christian, was the head of the Human Genome Project, and he sought to patent everything he could get his hands on. Everything that was found with public monies during the Human Genome Project, Collins got patented so that he could guarantee that it would be always in the public domain. Because holding a patent to something doesn't necessarily mean getting rich with it. Holding a patent means having control over its use. And so the National Institutes of Health holds the patent and therefore the control over the use of a majority of the material found during the Human Genome Project, and in that way has guaranteed that all of that material will always stay in the public domain and not for private enterprise and private wealth building. So patenting is complex, and the task force, knowing that, consciously stepped away from it as a topic.
Thank you for that information. Is someone moving? Yes. Microphone 3.
Kegge Hagen, I serve the people of Abiding Savior in beautiful North Tonawanda, New York, the true terminus of the Erie Canal. I always want to say that. That being said, I am, to borrow the new quasi-poster child for all that is horrible about genetic illnesses and genetic problems, but also all that is good and hopeful by the grace of God of what can be with genetic illnesses. I think the statement doesn't go far enough on some things. That being said, though, I think the statement is a wonderful first step. And I guess that's what I ask the whole to affirm, that more work needs to be done when it comes to the actual human aspect of genetic disease, the stem cell issue, things like that. So I guess mine is the affirming of the step and what also needs to be done, that it doesn't go far enough for what truly affects people in the pews. And I mean, some of it's an overstatement, but I guess that's always my affirming, to not let this just be the be-all and the end-all on genetic statements, and to uphold the pastoral aspect and even the aspect of what is all possible through God, and not just through a social statement or through what committees might decide. So that's just my comment. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. The chance that this is going to be chapter 1 of a 2 or 3 or more chapter project is pretty slender because of the very high expense of putting together a genetic social statement involving 20 people over 4 years with 3 meetings a year in Chicago. It actually costs something to do. And to make a second chapter or a sequel is pretty unlikely. However, the action steps in the implementing resolutions that come at the end of the statement include a variety of ways in which the church can and should and would be encouraged to take this and move forward with it on a local, regional, and even national level. And as for stem cells, because stem cell therapeutic research is not per se a genetic project, and because the stem cell questions are so large and complex, the task force elected consciously again, deliberately, after careful consideration, to not include it in the embrace of the statement because it's simply too big. But one of the implementing resolutions is to encourage the church to study the possibility of a formal statement on stem cells.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak to this resolution? I don't see anybody rising to a microphone. I want to thank Dr. LaBelle both for his workshops, for the hard work he's done on behalf of all of us and on behalf of the whole church. And we'll see what happens in Orlando. Thank you very much.